Welcome to this retrospective slash review for the video game Knuckles Chaotix. And I'm going to talk about not just the game, but also the emulator I used. This is the first time I used it, so it's kind of going to be a bit of a dual review to a certain extent. But yeah, I'm just going to jump right into and give you my thoughts on the game while I let some footage roll in the background here that I made while I was attempting to get the final chaos rings for the game. And so yeah, I'll just start in and give you my thoughts. Well, first of all, I guess one thing you can tell here just from looking at the background right there, there was a little bit of some emulation glitches on the character select screen. And outside of the emulation glitches there, I don't think I really ever saw anything, too bad, basically, with the emulation for the game itself. So I feel like the emulator that I was using, which was the BizHawk emulator, which for the Retro Achievements website is the recommended emulator for anything 32X related. It is the one they recommend using. I think it did a pretty decent job, all things considered, just with that one tiny glitch. I'm not a big fan of the interface. I think from an interface perspective, I'm a little more used to using RetroArch, and RetroArch is obviously a much more snazzier setup, I guess would be the best way of saying it. But at the end of the day, if you're just trying to play the game, the BizHawk emulator does work. It works well enough. Like I said, maybe doesn't have all the bells and whistles and graphical, pizzazz that you'd be looking for, but it still works. And yeah, so I guess that was based my very brief thoughts about the emulator. I don't think it's kind of weird that the 32X emulation is still not perfect in 2025. But then again, I mean, there's probably some good reasons for that. The 32X add-on itself was a fairly niche product, and not a lot of people had that. And furthermore, the game selection is fairly small, all things considered. So I can understand why emulation isn't a big priority on a lot of people's radar because of how niche and small it is. But at the same time, it is kind of a bit odd that emulation isn't perfect at this point for something that is, well, shoot, I guess 30 years old now at this point. For the device, I should say. Actually, I don't remember what year this came out, so I think it's probably like 95 or something as well. So, but either way, we're looking at roughly a 30-year game slash console add-on at this point, and there's still some emulation issues, which is a bit interesting. But for the most part, I think everything did emulate well enough at the end. Now, as far as the game itself goes, I mean, I think one of the biggest things I could definitely say about it is it's a very colorful game. And I think graphically it looks great for any Genesis game, basically. It has a very unique level select structure. Not necessarily one I'm a big fan of, to be fair, because you literally don't know which level you're going to be going into from one level to the next. So, at the end of the day, I guess it's just a minor thing there. I think I prefer if I'm going to select a level, I should know where I'm going kind of aspects. But it's unique. I'll give it that. It's definitely unique. And definitely worth trying out. It's a new spin on something which I think is very interesting. The controls for the game, that's something that I think a lot of people, when they talk about this game in particular, a lot of people don't like the way the game controls. They call it the rubber band effect, which it basically really is. Now I mostly played with Knuckles for just about everything. I mean, there's only a few things where I didn't use Knuckles, and outside of that, though, I feel like Knuckles is a better character than probably most of them to choose as your main playable character. And with the one exception of the companion you see here on your screen, I think most of the companions are fairly usable at any point. That most of them don't stand out any more than any of the others from a gameplay perspective if they're your companions. Now, if you're playing them as your main, that's a completely different story. But this particular companion here, Bomb, well, that's the one companion that if you accidentally pick him up, you're like, ah, crap. Because if he gets hit, he could blow up and damage you in the process. So that kind of stinks. So outside of Bomb, even the other not good character that goes by the name of Heavy wasn't that big of a deal to play with. At least I only played with him like once or twice, I think. But compared to Bomb, I didn't feel like he was that bad of a character to use in comparison. Outside of that, I think there's a pretty colorful cast of characters. We could say it that way. None of the characters really stood out more than the others, except maybe the alligator Vector. I did like Vector. He seems like a cooler character from a design perspective, to me at least. But other than that, I think they were pretty decent character selection. But overall, this is really more the Knuckles show, as it were, which it goes without saying. And also, this is technically one of the few Sonic games that doesn't really feature Sonic in any capacity whatsoever. One thing I haven't mentioned yet about the game is the soundtrack. Now, I think the soundtrack is good. Don't get me wrong. I did like the music in the game. I think they did a very good job with it. But also, it's kind of odd here is that they didn't... what's the words I'm looking for here? It doesn't stand out as a soundtrack to me. I feel like the soundtracks for, say, Sonic 2, Sonic CD, Sonic 3, and Knuckles, I felt like those soundtracks were actually much better than this one, personally. And it's a good soundtrack, but you would think with the 32X being a better system that they could have improved the soundtrack. Now, obviously, Sonic CD is going to be heads and tails above this because it did have the CD quality soundtrack at two of them, in fact. So I'm not really even putting it in the same category, but the fact that I felt like Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I should say, had better soundtracks than this is kind of an interesting decision. It's not a bad soundtrack. It's a good soundtrack, but it's definitely nowhere near the top of any Sonic game soundtrack that you'd think of off the top of your head. But it's good. I do want to say it is good. The tunes are catchy, so that seems to be fairly standard across the board for pretty much any Sonic game. Is at the bare minimum, it's going to have a good soundtrack. So anyway, that's my thoughts for the basics of the game. Now, I guess this would be a bit of a con, and I think if you look at reviews for this game online here and there, a lot of them are going to say the same thing. It's very easy. And it truly is. This game is almost ridiculously easy, to be honest with you. Now that I look at this background, this wasn't me trying to get the remaining Chaos Rings. This is just me beating the stages so I could get to the last boss fight. So there won't be much as far as special stage things in the background here. But yeah, the game itself is very, very simple. For all the games that I played on the Genesis era of Sonic games, this one by far is the easiest. Now I know the last one I played was Sonic Triple Trouble, the fan remake, and I thought that one was pretty easy as well. But I would say this one's probably much easier than even that Triple Trouble game. It's almost laughably easy, to be completely fair with you. Which not necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes you just want to have a fairly easy game to sit down and relax with. And to be completely honest, you can definitely do that here with this game for certain. It's definitely extremely easy. I would probably put it at Kirby levels of easy. That's how easy it is. But I don't truly see that as a negative, but it is definitely something I would like to highlight, because it is not very challenging at all. I mean, there was a few parts where I did have some challenge. I think the bigger challenge you'll have will be in controlling the game with the whole rubber band effect and everything. But even outside of that, there's very few frustrating moments, with one very distinct exception, and that would be the special stages where you get the Chaos Rings. That's really the only time I felt even remotely challenged with this game. And here's the thing: is I actually looked at some reviews before I started putting up this video, and one review said that they just didn't feel like being bothered to get the good ending. And yeah, I think they probably had a good point, because the special stages were really the only frustrating aspect to this game, and definitely something that I said, you know what, heck with it, I'm going to use save states. Now, I didn't use save states when I was in the special stages. I just used them right before the special stage so that I could just reload and get back into it very quickly. And so I didn't 100% cheese out on the special stages, which also meant that my playtime for this game went up insanely high because of how I approached the special stages. Outside the first two, that is. The first two special stages, I think I was able to get through those fairly easily. But after that, the difficulty really cranked up heavily on those special stages. Getting enough rings to get to the special stages, that's mostly, for the most part, not really that difficult at all. Especially if you're in the Marina Madness attraction, as they called it. That one, I felt those levels were so easy, I was able to rack up a lot of rings to help me get to the special stage and do well. But it's really, at the end of the day, special stages were very much memorization based kind of things, where you just had to try and remember how to get to everything in them. And those special stages are really the only frustrating aspect to this game, I feel, from a difficulty perspective. And if I was doing this back in the day on an actual Genesis with a 32X, I don't think I would have felt compelled to get all 6 of the Chaos Rings. I really wouldn't have. The game itself, it's a fun game. It's a fun, easy game, but no, I don't think I would have felt compelled to get those Chaos Rings if it weren't for the fact that I had save states with the emulator. So 100%, I definitely can understand where people coming from there. But with having an emulator and save states, I figured, okay, let's go ahead and knock this out. And then when I did, it was such a big disappointment that what I got for the effort of going to get those 6 Chaos Rings, I was a little bit flabbergasted, to be completely honest. I was like, this is, I mean, you got something on, say, Sonic 3, or I think, did you get anything special with Sonic 2? I don't think you got anything special with Sonic 2 for getting all the Chaos Emeralds, but you definitely got something special with Sonic 3 and Knuckles if you went to the effort to get all the Chaos Emeralds and all the the big Chaos Emeralds, which I'm completely having a blank now. I mean, you got an extra stage, you got a significant ending change if you went through the effort of getting them. For this game, you get basically a different screen, in-game screen, for going through all the effort of getting those chaos rings. Truly the only challenging aspect to this game, and that's all you get. It's it's a letdown. I'm not going to lie. It truly is a letdown when you do that. Outside of that, though, I mean, I think the game is decent. It's interesting that Sega has never done anything to re-release this game, because they've released pretty much every other Genesis era Sonic game with the exception of this one. Perhaps maybe one of the reasons is because emulation of the 32X is very finicky. Maybe that's why they haven't bothered to re-release it. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think it's the worst Sonic game I've ever played, but you know, turn that off. It's not the worst Sonic game I've ever played, but it's definitely nowhere near the top, for sure. I mean, I would probably put it roughly in the same category as Sonic 1, and from a rating perspective, I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people have said it is, but it's basically a somewhat average game. I'll probably maybe be a little bit nice. I'll just give it an 80% ranking. It's definitely worth trying if you want to get the full aspect of everything that was going on back in the day with Sonic on the Genesis, especially for someone like myself, because to me, this is all new stuff, because I'd never had a Genesis or 32X, any of this stuff when I was growing up. So from that perspective, it's pretty neat to go back and try this game out. And like I said, it is a colorful game, and once you get used to the rubber band effect, as it were, in the game, it's something you can adjust to. And there's even some points where it's actually kind of cool. Definitely not my preferred way of playing the game, but at the end of the day, it's worth a go, I guess, is the best way I have of saying it. It definitely is worth a try, and I would definitely encourage you all to give it a shot if you are a fan of these Genesis era Sonic games. Anyway, that's my thoughts for Knuckles Chaotix. It was I guess you could call it a little bit of a chaotic experience and be completely unoriginal in your puns, but it's definitely a pretty fun game and worth trying out. And yeah, it's not anything that you're going to be able to obtain legally, because Sega hasn't seen fit to re-release this game, but it's worth tracking down if you get the chance. Anyway, that's it for my thoughts on this game. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.